Do not adjust your radio dial. You are tuned in to the Mark Order Podcast. Join the Mark Order.
Hello! It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. Mark Order Podcast. Me and Joe coming at you live tonight. Had a hell of a pay-per-view this weekend. Had a medium episode of Dynamite, but with some pretty key developments. I feel like the episode developments were downplayed where they weren't crucially important and cool, but we got a big one next week coming up in Boston. Some good stuff there, but I'm here with Joe. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing well. I think I'm fully recovered from my first bout with COVID.
Oh, yeah. You can tell the people. You're not everyone's a professional like me at getting COVID, okay? Not everyone's like a 4-time COVID champion.
I went 4 years without it, and all of a sudden, I start talking and hanging out with Kate, and all of a sudden, just COVID by association.
What did I do?
I have no idea. I think we've broken new ground of how it's transmitted.
It's possible. It's possible. I passed it to Joe digitally. This is actually episode 152, not 151. But Ryan, who is not here, he called me and was like, bring. I'm phoning it in. So he labeled it wrong. He's not here tonight. He's another year older and wiser. His birthday was yesterday. And I guess that means he doesn't have to try anymore. So that's what we've got going on here. Just me and Joe today, sincerely. He's taking care of some personal stuff. So we are a 2-person crew, but we have a lot to talk about anyway. And I talk a lot. So
before we get into that, though, I wanted to ask you, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I can't believe we're like through the first week of March already. I was like, I have to get my ass in gear on WrestleMania plans and stuff. Like, I need to apply for credentials to certain things and get going. But I think Nigel McGuinness is going to have his magic show in Philly. So I'll be going to that on behalf of the clams and on behalf of everybody. So I'm good. I just can't believe how I feel like beginning of the year I got COVID and then had the cruise and was like, all right, February heads down. And then I was like, wait, February now evaporated too. Even with a leap year, even with an extended month, it felt like it flew by. So just wrapping my head around the fact that spring is around the corner a little bit, but I'm good. I loved the pay-per-view this weekend. I got to watch part of it with Matt of the Shining Wizards. And then I snuck home and caught the rest of it. I left actually during the triple threat because I wanted to catch the main event with Sting in all his glory. And other than that, just pretty low key, just cleaning, living life, not having COVID for once in my freaking life.
It was just a random occurrence. Like, of all the times I could have gotten it, it's just the most random. Like, happening to go to a small little bar, like not very many people. So
weird. I will say, the past 2 times I've gotten, I've been like, well, yeah, I was at a massive event or whatever. Like, things are, it made sense. Everything lined up, but yeah, we're killing it here. Daphne is next to me, begging for my attention, but I have attention to give to the people, Daphne, not just to the doggos.
It's all fun and games until she hits that plug, and then your light.
I know, and then my white girl light goes out, my computer charger goes out. She knows how to get vengeance on me, but let's dive in a little bit because we have so much to get through today. We had an incredible pay-per-view. We did a prediction show earlier that you can go check out if you want to see how on the Mark Order was. If you want to see Ryan's incredible Sting tribute, his beautiful face paint. He tried so hard, a little more of a juggalo looking situation, but it all went well. We had a nice little hour prediction show that you can check out to see. We did pretty well, I feel like, considering this was one of the more unpredictable cards, which was really refreshing.
I went back and tallied how many we got right.
Okay. How'd we do?
We all tied.
We all tied. Now that's pretty crazy because
Mhm.
this is we had some split opinions on some stuff. A lot of these more predictable ones of recent have been like, I'm gonna go with this. Yeah, me too. But this had some differentiation. So what did we all tie at? What was our record?
We all got 5 right.
We all got 5 right. Wow. On how many matches did we do?
Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10.
Wow. So we all were wrong on half.
Yeah, I don't think we did I think we might have missed one of. I don't think we did the 12 team.
Yeah, I don't think that was announced yet because
No.
we did it during the day on Saturday before Collision. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the sign of a good card. Like I feel like the fact that it was so unpredictable was part of why it was really fun. And I really loved pretty much everything except the All-Star Scramble. There were like a couple of overall complaints that I had of I felt like the sequencing was a little off. I probably would have moved Takeshita and Ospreay up a little bit because we had so many hard-hitting brawler type matches back to back to back to back to back. I love FTR, but because of the way they tell stories, those matches always start kind of slow. And I'm always like, this feels a little slow. And then by the end of it, I'm like, oh, I get it. The story is is now unfolding. But to do that with some brawler stuff was not. I would have just switched it up a little bit. I also didn't like that we got back-to-back leg injury angles in the first 2 matches, and I didn't love that we got 2 interference spots for championship outcomes with the women's match and the Garcia match. But overall, I thought the card was awesome. The only thing I flat out didn't like at all was the All-Star Scramble. It was just very predictable, went on too long. One of those like spots where 4 guys are playing possum and then all of a sudden they all feel better at once. So, but other than that, like just a home run of a card. I felt like the goodbye to Sting couldn't have gone more perfectly. Like his sons being involved was so sweet. What a wonderful thing. I love the Darby spot. That guy knows what his limits are. He's out of his mind. Let him do what he wants to do. But I thought it was such a blast. Takeshita and Will Ospreay was, to me, by far in-ring wise match of the night. I also loved Danielson and Kingston, to nobody's surprise. But some really good stuff. And I still think it was Swerve's time, but I thought the triple threat was put together very, very well. Like, Swerve is fully a babyface now. Hangman is fully a heel now. Joe is fully a badass always. So I wanted Swerve to go over, but I'm fine with Joe still being champion, and I think Swerve is still your next champ. I just feel like Dynasty's a little too far away, but I thought it was great overall. What did you think overall, and are there specific things that you want to call out as well?
Dynasty's not too far away. It's only about, 7 weeks, 6 weeks? So
it isn't that far away, but when you think of... I'm assuming Will Ospreay is going to defeat Swerve at All In for the title. I feel like you do that. So when you think about the extra 6 weeks or 7 weeks onto a reign, like there's a big difference between 4 months and 5.5 or 6 months when you think about long-term stories that could be told with that. Because I don't think with Swerve you want to do an Orange Cassidy style reign of the story is him as a champion, him getting beat up, him whatever. I think with Swerve, because he's so good at getting you invested, you want those long-term stories. So I feel like he should have a lengthier reign. Also, your first black singles champ, probably a good idea to keep that visibility a little bit longer. I don't think it's bad. And I think having a championship change hands on your first ever Dynasty pay-per-view is probably a good thing. Like it'll be a noteworthy and important moment. But just for me, that's a 4 months versus 6 months for long-term stories. I feel like can be a lot, but
again, with you, I think we all have the same expectations for this card. Once we saw it announced, that we all thought there's a lot of good matches, a lot of unpredictable outcomes. Like you said, the scramble was probably the least favorite, just because they always feel like a rumble, like a rumble match, but a battle royal match.
We all knew Wardlow was winning too, so it's kind of But
with like 8 people, it's really glaring to see, 4 people not doing anything. It's hard to hide that, like half the guys aren't in the ring. So that would kind of...
And they all came to at the exact same time.
Yeah.
They're all magically better at the exact same time is my other issue with that.
I think I kind of with you in the same thought of like how some of the show order was as far as the card. I thought maybe they could have like flipped out maybe the first and second matches and reversed ordered them to just kind of get the crowds going hot initially.
Sure.
Trying to think. Other than that, I think I'm glad to see that Riley won clean without any interference.
That was very cool. And the Kyle O'Reilly return.
Yes. And that's
legitimately cried. Legitimately cried because oh man, I love KOR, and he's someone that when you hear about things is like very highly regarded and well respected in the industry. And I was just so heartbroken when he went out because he was just getting going. Like he had 3 matches in a row that were so great. And I didn't even think about it until day of. I was like, oh, what if Kyle can come out for that moment? I didn't know he was going to be cleared for the ring at all. Because if you follow him on Instagram, you can see his road after surgery has not been an easy one. Like that surgery did not go completely as planned. It did not click in the way that they were hoping. So I had no idea whether he was anywhere near a proper return. But that was a huge highlight of the show for me. I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Other than that, I'm glad that we've kind of set up this Joe versus Swerve one-on-one match that we're going to get here down the road. So that'll be nice to see. And, the Sting, the way they did that, they nailed it. Every so often, AEW just hits home runs with how they should handle things. How they did the Brody tribute obviously was a big success, and they did that perfectly. And, this whole 3-year run of Stings, I can't remember a time where I felt like they really messed up with him.
No, they really didn't. They really didn't. They've done a great job with him. And it's just good that he got to retire on better terms and got to go out this way. I do think it's interesting because now we have this tournament, right? We found out the titles are vacated. We're going to have a tournament set up. I'm wondering what to expect from this. Will there be outside teams that are involved? I'm a big GYV gal. I'm a big M&M gal because I love Mansoor and Massey or Brennan, however, Mason, whatever you want to call him, whichever name. The Velocities out of Australia are incredible. They've been doing some cool work in Japan or I don't think in Japan yet, but they did some cool work with Impact, I believe. Very highly regarded team. I think there's a chance to introduce some new blood into the division. I think it needs it. Could use a little bit more excitement. GYV springs to mind because I just keep thinking like All In is out there. That would be a very, very cool moment for them. And they're excellent. They're an excellent tag team. We're going to talk about what we saw tonight with the EVPs inserting themselves back into the picture. My Fight Club co-host Alex Pulaski said that they should get a tournament bye, like give themselves a tournament bye, which would be brilliant. I love that idea. But what are your thoughts on a tournament? Like, who do you expect to win? Who do you expect to show out? Do you think there's any free agents that maybe we're not thinking of as far as the tag team market right now? What do you want to see from the tag division that feels like it's desperately needed a reboot?
Yeah, I wasn't enamored with the idea of doing another tournament since we've done a couple of tournaments recently, but I understand sending Sting out with a win. So you had no other choice, but I hope it's a nice mix. I hope it's, you have some ROH teams in there. You have some other AEW teams in there, and then you have a couple of maybe New Japan or CMLL or someone, the promotions they've been working with lately. And I'm sure we'll have maybe 1 or 2, free agent type teams that they mix in. But I'm glad that like they're focusing on tag team wrestling again. At least it feels that way.
Yeah, I agree with you on the tournament fatigue a little bit. And part of it is the C2 was just such an involved tournament. It was like my favorite thing they've done in forever. I loved the C2. But it ate up a ton of time and a lot of weeks of programming, excellent weeks of programming. So I have no complaints about it. But then you go and throw another tournament. It's like, we just got through the best tournament you've probably ever done. So jumping back into a tournament for the tag picture, normally I'd be like, I don't know. But this tag division has needed a reboot so bad that I'm in favor of it. Like, I think it'll be something that'll really be a nice shot in the arm.
How many teams do you think should be in it? I mean, so it's not too big, but big enough to have enough diversity.
All of them. I think you have a fun opportunity because it is March to do a March Madness-y type thing. Give it a month. I think could be something that's fun. I'm kind of like maybe a 12 team tournament. I feel like feels good because I think it should feel robust enough, and I do think you want some new life in there that could be really, really cool. But I don't think you want to go too much bigger than that because I think you run the risk of, okay, and now this round or whatever, like let's get to it. And you also just don't want to not have tag champions for that long. You want this division to feel important. What do you think? Do you think 12 feels too many? Or are you like, let's do 8?
I'm in that sweet spot, 8 to 12. You know, we have rankings apparently, right? Somewhere.
Allegedly, we haven't had them in like a month. I think Ryan put them out. I think when Ryan did the last ranking reps, they were like, we can no longer do these because we cannot have this guy making a fool out of it.
But yeah, I mean, you could easily use that for your first however many team, 5 or 6 teams, and then you have a couple of their wild card teams in the mix as well.
Sure.
That would have made sense to me, since you already have those rankings established.
Agreed. I think that can determine some of the seeding. That would be fun. I think bringing in some outliers could be a blast. So I'm looking forward to it. And I think this division was thirsty for something that would reset. And I'm wondering if, like, does this include ROH teams? Like, will we see the infantry doing this? Will we see Butcher and Blade doing this? Will we see the Iron Savages in something like this? I want ROH to feel like ROH, but they never tend to do that. So I'm very intrigued to see what the case is. But I'm a TMDK homer. Put TMDK in there. But you mentioned New Japan teams. Like, I think there could be a fun crossover. You could think in terms of Forbidden Door. There's plenty of possibilities. And I don't know. I'm just a GYV homer, so put GYV.
You're trying to get as many techers in there as you can. You're like,
I am. Well, I think it would be Shane and Mikey, and they're both so funny and so good that I think it would be fun to have. I think this is going to feel like a serious tournament because it needs it. I think it would be fun to have some silly people in there. But legitimately they could be on the Forbidden Door card. So thinking in terms of making something pay off down the line, like they have all this history with the Mogul Embassy already. Maybe they face off again. There's some cool possibilities there. But we also had a huge development on AW Dynamite tonight. It was reported, I believe Fightful Select was the first to break it, but confirmed by PW Insider and Wrestling Observer as well, that Okada is going to be showing up. Oh my gosh! There's a Rainmaker in our presence.
I have props, yeah.
Whose bachelor party did you go to that you have this? Where did it come from? Where can I get one? This is amazing.
It was a part of a Halloween costume. I went as
did you go as Okada?
No, I went as a crazy rich Asian. So no.
Well, you are not of the Samoas. You are of the Asias, as we have to say.
One of the 3 words are accurate.
You are very rich. That's why you're
obviously.
Yeah, that's why you're shooting money around.
I don't know how much is in here.
I know. If I were there, I'd be grabbing it, grabbing the money, grabbing the dollars. We did have Okada showing up today, which was spoiled by those darn dirt sheets. But what was not spoiled by those darn dirt sheets, I could never, was we had Okada not only showing up, but showing up in a very interesting spot that I'm really excited about. We'll talk about it at length during Dynamite, or during our Dynamite review portion of the show, I should say. But we get Okada coming out after the EVPs say Hangman Page is suspended, which I was like, honestly, fair. That guy attacked 2 referees during this match. He should probably be suspended. But I like them acknowledging that they're on good terms with Hangman in the process. And they also say that Kenny Omega's been absent for basically no reason, which I think is hilarious, considering that guy has had a million surgeries and is tending to diverticulitis, I believe it was.
Mhm.
So very much reasons. There are so many reasons, but because of that, he is out of the Elite. But they welcome somebody new into the Elite, and that is Kazuchika Okada, which I think is such a fun angle for a few reasons. One, everybody was expecting him to come in, and I think just assumed he would be a babyface because, of course, he was going to be super, super over. Him showing up in this spot after doing such great heel work at his last run in New Japan, I think is such a fun choice. This pays off the text message that they were sending when they first debuted these characters. This plays into the history they already have with them. And most importantly, kind of feels like we're setting up for Okada and Kenny again, because he's here to replace Kenny Omega. That means a few things. One, we have an incredible build for that match coming up. And two, also means Kenny Omega's probably on his way back pretty soon, which I don't think anybody had a timetable for. So that's just also awesome to hear. This has been a really positive stretch for AEW creatively, and they've done it without MJF, without Adam Cole, without Kenny Omega. Like, so many top stars have been out, without Britt Baker on the women's side. So many stars out, so many top talent out. They can't all be Bryan Danielson, who is like, what? I don't have an eyeball. I'm going to wrestle through it anyway. Like, some people have to tend to their broken bones over here. I love Okada just walking right into this angle. I love that twice now, when they've had a major debuting star, they were like, we're just going to give you what you want immediately. I liked what they did with Punk, where he earned his way in, but with Danielson facing Kenny off the bat, and now we have Okada coming in facing Kenny off the bat as a heel with Kenny as a face, presumably. So a little switcheroo of their roles in a lot of ways. Man, oh man, this was really fun. I love the coin drop and the different music switch here. Okada, I felt like played it perfectly out of the gate too. The way he walked into it, the way he stood next to him. He's in this fine looking suit. Excellent stuff. And I love the angle that he is walking into. I think that's so fun. And I think this is a lot different from what people might have expected. We'll talk about it during the show. They kind of hinted that we might be getting Okada versus Eddie Kingston as well. As someone that is going to Supercard of Honor in a few weeks. Fucking please, oh please. I would lose my mind. But what are your thoughts on Okada officially being here, walking to his angle, and what matches do you want to see?
I like the fact that they kept the coin drop. So, like, as soon as that hit,
everybody popped.
Yeah, you knew who it was. It's, to a lesser degree, maybe it's the glass shattering. It's the, that significance, that sound effect. I'm with you. I like that. After we had Will Ospreay come in officially as an AEW talent, he was kind of the energetic baby face, and now you have this kind of silent assassin, businessman Okada, who comes in with the Bucks, with the EVPs. I couldn't be happier to see him go that way instead of the usual trope of the baby face. And all I kept thinking was how jealous you must be of his suit. And because I know how much you want a good suit. And the fact that, like, Okada comes rolling in, dressed to the nines, I mean, come on.
I don't know why I had to bring it up. But yes, for months I was asking Bobby Lashley for a suit. And then I was asking, no luck. I mean, months. I was like, because here's the thing. He was flaunting them. He was like, here's entire racks of suits that I have. And I was like, bro, can I just get one? Right? And then I was like, well, that's not going to work. And Samoa Joe was coming out in cool suits. I was like, maybe Samoa Joe will give me one. And then that didn't happen. So I was going after Bronson Reed. Maybe Okada's my guy. Maybe I can, we've got a good cop and a bad cop situation here on our EVPs. Maybe if I ask the nice one, maybe if I ask Matt, I can get myself a suit. But thank you for bringing up such a sore spot. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It was really fucking cruel of you. But any dream matches sitting out there for you? Or let me ask you this question before we go into specifics. Do you want to see him rekindle all his old rivalries, or do you want to see him start new rivalries, or do you want a mix of both?
I want a mix of both. I don't want the old rivalries right away, though. I like the fact that he's going kind of looking like he's going into a program with Eddie. That feels a little bit fresh, a little bit different. It wasn't anything on my radar when I initially thought who he might feud with when he comes in. So I like having that one be the first one. Like you said, the Kenny one seems obvious, but that can be, later this year.
That could be an all-in match, honestly. Like, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
To do that in the UK for the UK fans would be, I think, really, really cool.
But yeah, if you have a lot of MJF gets back, you have that match some down the line. You have Swerve and Okada down the line sometime.
Starks was popped into my mind, like Okada with the coin drop and him and his nice suits and all these things. And you have Starks kind of. That's like a heel on heel match that I think could work out very, very well.
I like that.
Well, we do have some other things to touch on before we dive into this week's episode of Dynamite. We talked about Kyle O'Reilly coming back, which was wonderful. We get a promo from him later tonight, but some interesting stuff from the pay-per-view there. We also had Kyle Fletcher returning after clearing up some visa issues. He was stuck in Australia there for a minute, but he made it back for the pay-per-view and for a match tonight. But some breaking news earlier today that Matt Hardy's AEW contract is set to expire soon. An interesting one here because he hasn't been featured very much, but you do have Edge and Christian in the same company as the Hardys, and you got to figure, even if he doesn't sign a long-term contract, they got to be pulling for an extension, right? I would think having Jeff active and healthy, at least for the time being, and Matt Hardy there, Christian and Adam Copeland could be on the same side of things within a few months if you wanted to. They've been so involved in each other's stories. My guess is that's the case. What do you think? Because it feels like Matt Hardy has not been around a ton. He also hasn't looked great, right? Like he looks at his age, like he looks as old as he is, and wrestlers age in wrestling years. So do you want to see a Matt Hardy extension, or what do you think? Is his time done?
I think you have to have that match with Adam Copeland and Christian versus the Hardys. I mean, you can't have both of those, like all four of those men in the same company and not have one more match between them to send off the Hardys. Do
you think it's a TLC match with like them and the Bucks, or them and FTR or something?
Instead of Christian and Adam?
No, doing like a three-way. Yeah, like a three-way TLC match.
I think that would help. I mean, it would help carry the match a little bit more because, like you said, Jeff and Matt have, time has caught up with their bodies after all the stuff they've gone through.
Yeah, God bless them. It's caught up with mine, and I'm not a wrestler, so.
Right. So I think the time is nearing, and I feel like they haven't been around much. I know they've kind of had this kind of a work shoot thing of them being unhappy or with their booking and not being on TV and kind of tongue in cheek. I feel like it's kind of a tongue in cheek type of thing.
Sure.
And then all the stuff they've the accidents they've had in the ring with Sammy, it's just, things have been kind of compounded on top of one another. Where you don't want to not do the things you want to get done before you leave. Sure.
Yeah, you definitely want to wrap things up there on a high note. But you did mention a piece of news about Sammy Guevara. He was suspended for not following concussion protocol after the match with Jeff Hardy, who sustained an injury in that match. I was trying to figure out why it would be Sammy Guevara's fault that he laid his finisher in on somebody who was concussed, and it wasn't the fault of the referee or the medical staff. And the only thing that, and this came from somebody else that I was in conversation with, the only thing that they could think of was maybe they said, hey, we think he's rocked, we're going home. And instead of a small package, he hit a GTS or whatever. Like maybe it was communicated to him like, hey, we got to wrap this match up. We think he might be rocked. And instead of doing something that was a safe move, he hit a move that is quite literally kicking Jeff Hardy in the head. So that's the only thing I could think of. Doesn't seem like the end of the world. Hopefully Jeff is okay. But it seems like more procedural and absent-minded than certainly anything malicious or behavioral in that way. But it does seem like Sammy Guevara gets caught up in these things a lot. Now, from everything that I had heard, the situation with Andrade was 100% Andrade. The situation with Kingston, Eddie Kingston came out and said, it was on me, it was my fault. But it is kind of like, this guy always seems to be in the mix here of some behavioral and suspension issues. Any thoughts on stuff with Sammy Guevara or this spot in particular?
You know, I'd like to think, it's 50 or 50% or more bad luck just for him, of just wrong place, wrong time type of incidents that occurs. Hopefully that doesn't follow him through the rest of his career, because he's had so many incidents and people will start remembering him for those instead of some of the work he actually does really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too bad. When I saw that spot initially, I mean, yeah, he looked like he turned his body a little bit because it looked like Jeff was kind of throwing the knees up and standing there trying to alter his body where you're going to land. And it's just a bad accident. And I'm with you. Like, the only reason I can think of that he would hit that finish is if he misunderstood, to go home or, go to the finish, and he actually hit the finish instead of just a roll up. Yeah,
I agree. I think part of the issue with Sammy is when he comes back between these absences, he's always in creative that nobody likes. Like, it's always Jericho's lapdog, whatever. And the bummer is I felt like he was really just getting going. He had this match on Rampage. He had that really fun match on Collision to open it. And people were like, oh, yeah, we get to see Sammy show out. This is what we like about the guy. And now it feels like maybe that match was done to write him off because of this suspension. So just kind of an odd thing. And then a couple more pieces of news. It was an eventful little week, but Santana was let go from the company as well. So it was kind of an odd situation. He had healed up from his injury, and he was brought back for what was a really nice feud between Ortiz and him. And then nothing really was followed up on. Nothing really went anywhere. He does seem like he is in a positive place from everything he's put out on Twitter and stuff. I think he had mentioned that he reached a year of sobriety. Sometimes people just need fresh beginnings in their life with things like that. But it is a bummer, and I feel like a lot of people feel as though the Proud and Powerful not getting a tag run is one of the biggest missed opportunities for that tag division. And now it sucks because if they were around, I feel like they would be shoo-ins to win a tournament like we have coming up. But for whatever reason, they couldn't get on the same page to work together. Doesn't seem like AEW was the right fit for Santana. A lot happened in the time he was out as well when you consider the expansion of programming, right? When he left, it was 3 hours. Now you have Collision and ROH involved. Internal structural changes. Maybe he didn't have as much access to Tony Khan as when he left because we've expanded programming so much and there is a different structure now. So who knows? Who knows why people are unsatisfied with their work situation, but wishing him just the best in life and in sobriety and for whatever's next. But he is working the indies. He's around. It seems like he's cleared and healthy to wrestle. So, and any thoughts on the departure of Santana? I'm so bummed because I thought Proud and Powerful title reign would have been it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's the what if and the missed opportunity with them not getting a title run. But hopefully he can go on the indies, get some of that momentum going again. Maybe he ends up back at TNA.
Sure.
I think that might be a good landing spot for him as a singles run.
I agree. I think there could be some fun stuff for him to do in TNA, especially with their current roster. They could use someone like him. Like, to my knowledge, there's not anybody like Santana around there. So could be a fun signing over there. And we wish him the best there. But Joe, the name of this episode is Tunnels of Love. And the reason it's called that is the tunnels returned. We got a refreshed AEW aesthetic. I personally really like what we got tonight. A lot of people were like, it's NXT 2.0-ish because it's so bright and colorful, but that feels a little more, the NXT one felt like all of the colors felt a little more Double Dare. It felt like a little bit more retro, where this I feel like had almost like a sunset color theme and kind of pulled back in those OG paint splatter situations that we had before with a nice font here. The tunnels have returned. They're different looking tunnels than we had before. The front of them are more prominent, but I love that we have the tunnels back. I missed them. I missed those heel and face tunnels so much. I love them. But I kind of like it. We're moving into a new era, new theme as well at the beginning of the show. This is a new era for AEW. We're in 5 years in. I know Andrew Zarian had said, Tony Khan had said multiple times that like they're getting out of startup mode and into we're a real deal business mode. We've switched back to a more sports focused product. Today did not feel all that sports based, but I really think they were like, this whole episode is going to get overshadowed by the fact that Okada's here and we've got Boston next week and stuff. But I love the aesthetic. I like white ring ropes too. I think they look really nice. What were your thoughts on our new AEW aesthetic tonight?
I'm happy for the refresh. I don't know. They kept saying it was kind of a new season. So I'm wondering if now every year after Revolution, that's going to be kind of the mark of the new season of AEW Dynamite. Kind of like,
Sure.
They don't follow a calendar year. They don't follow a fiscal year. They kind of find that bookmark after a pay-per-view and call it the new start. But when I initially saw the colors, my mind did go a little bit to NXT 2.0.
Sure.
Because of the vibrant colors. It then transitioned into, it reminds me of Daniel Garcia's entrance.
Oh, yes. Yeah. All it's missing is the
dancing in the middle. But I'm all for like the refresh of it and, adding more of the LED lighting, adding more of the LED boards. It doesn't bother me from watching at home. I think it probably helps enhance the experience for the live crowd.
Sure.
So the music, it's just, I didn't mind it. It's just something I have to get used to now that's different. I'm so used to,
like the fuse. Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, okay, it's something different. But no, I'm fine with it as long as they don't touch the collision stage.
My man, you know what's up because the collision stage is perfect. There are no changes that need to be made to that stage, but I did like this. I also want them to keep it distinct from Collision. Like, I actually didn't love Collision having the LED boards on the apron and the outside. Like, I like that Collision feels like an old school product and had an old school feel with it, but has that sleek, modern, huge screen. I'm really glad they got away from this show is one color and the show is another color because those colors are already kind of claimed by a different wrestling program. The last set felt a little too sleek. I understood the need for the changes because, quite frankly, giant screens are cheap. They're easy to travel with. You can adapt them to any arena. Very, very easy to have a setup like that when you use giant screens. It's just a very, very simple and efficient travel-heavy thing. So I understood that. But it felt like, wow, we got way too efficient. Like, there was no personality left. Not no personality, but it definitely felt like it was a way different direction. This feels like a happy medium to me where it feels sleek and modern, but it has a little bit more life to it. And the tunnels are back. So the interesting thing to me is what tunnel are the Blackpool Combat Club going to come down? Because they switch face and heel so effortlessly that I think it's going to be interesting, though. We did get a Danielson Osprey tease tonight, which makes me think Danielson's staying heel for a while.
But he came out the face tunnel.
Yeah, he did. Danielson's just like, he should just come down the middle because he's always going to get cheered even when he's a heel. So give him
the Cody Vader. Have him come up the middle.
There you go. I love that.
Moxley will always come through the hallway from the side. So I guess you have to see what one Claudio comes out of.
Yeah, it's just Claudio and Wheeler, I guess. But speaking of the Cody Vader, I love that we got the Young Bucks on the Cody Vader at the pay-per-view. That popped me tremendously. But some good stuff, a lot to talk about up front on the beginning of the show. Before we move on to AEW Dynamite, we are down a production, fella, so I don't know if Joe's able to do this, but I will say that we have merch madness going on, I think maybe just until tomorrow, maybe a little longer, I'm not sure, but if you head over to prowrestlingtees.com and look up the Mark Order podcast, we have 4 beautiful t-shirt designs awaiting for you. There are 2 double-sided ones. They all feature our logos or this font right here. I'm a big fan of the pocket square sized one. That's my favorite. I don't know if it's because I'm a grandpa or what, but I like the ones that remind me of a pocket square. Oh, here we go. Beautiful. Yeah, that last one is my favorite, but there's plenty of options to choose from. Got all 4 there, and Merch Madness was 20% off plus free shipping, I think, and normally they just do 20% off to make up for the free shipping as long as you hit the minimum. So if you're picking up t-shirts on your Merch Madness sale, please keep us in your mind as you are doing your shopping, because your support is awesome for us. But some good stuff to talk about at the beginning of the show. Kind of a down Dynamite, but before we get into it, I mean, other than the major highlights and some good stuff, but before we get into all that, we're going to tell you a little bit. Well, we're not going to tell you. We've got a compilation video to tell you about some of the other great shows on the Shining Wizards Network.
Every one of you for tuning in every Monday night to listen to The Shining Wizards. If you'd like to continue to support us outside of listening, we've got a few ways for you to do that. If you shop at Amazon, go over to amazon.shiningwizards.com, do your shopping as usual, and when you make your purchase, a little bit of that purchase price will go back to support the show. If you like to wear t-shirts, merch.shiningwizards.com will take you to our Pro Wrestling Tees store, where we've got over a dozen great designs from over 11 years of professional wrestling podcasting. You can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/wizardspodcast, where each and every week we call out your name as one of our show producers, and the more you support us, the more things that you're entitled to receive, and believe me, they are fantastic. If you can't support us monetarily, if you don't shop at Amazon, that's absolutely fine. Continue to listen to us wherever you listen to us on the World Wide Web, and make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Doesn't cost you anything, helps us out, and we can continue to bring you the love fest that is The Shining Wizards.
What's up, folks? It's your boy, the Impact Player, Mr. Philly Ray, inviting all of you to check out the Turnbuckle Throwbacks Wrestling Podcast. Join us as we cover all things current in the world of pro wrestling, as well as paying homage to the old school, the squared circle. So listen in and find out why we are the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment broadcasting. Find us on all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcast from. And as always, we are the proudest members of the Shining Wizards Network and Rant Entertainment Media.
Are you tired of being lied to every day by the mainstream media?
Do you want to know what's really going on in the world?
Do you want to make up your own mind about things and not be told what to think or say?
Then listen to Inconclusive Breakdown, a weekly anti-PC look at the world of entertainment and current events, brought to you without censorship or filters.
You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts, BitChute, and on ShiningWizardsNetwork.com.
And also, we're a proud member of the Shining Wizards Network.
Got 30 minutes to kill?
Come check out 30 Screams or Less, where we review a horror movie in 30 minutes or less. We cover new movies and old ones too.
We'll give our honest thoughts on the movie, good or shit, as well as a rating of each one that we watch.
New episodes weekly, available on the Shining Wizards Network and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Corey.
Come check us out at 30 Screams or Less.
G'day guys, my name is Thomas, one half of the Broadcast Podcast. With our podcast, we go back and watch wrestling events from WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, AEW, and many other wrestling promotions. You can check us out on Twitter at The Broadcast, that's TheBrokast, and you can also download all episodes on Apple Podcast, Castbox, Castro, and many other podcast apps.
If you like your music heavy, then check out Radioactive Metal on the Shining Wizards Network. For over 16 years now, Radioactive Metal has been one of the longest running podcasts. Over the years, We've interviewed some legendary metal acts, had some awesome discussions, and cranked a hell of a lot of tunes. So join your cool Uncle Snowy and his co-host Aaron for the audio mosh pit that is radioactive metal here on the Shining Wizards Network.
Well, the action is underway!
What's up, everyone? When on the Shining Wizards Network, be sure to check out Wrestling Night in Canada. If we're not recording another kick-ass podcast,
Or playing in punk bands.
Or recording kick-ass heavy metal albums.
then we're sitting back, we're grabbing a couple brews, and going over everything to do in the world of pro wrestling.
Because we're from Winnipeg, you idiots.
The Mark Order Podcast is the only show you need if you're looking for dedicated coverage of everything AEW on the Shining Wizards Network. Join us live on YouTube every Wednesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern after Dynamite to chat along with the show. If you can't join us live, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all social channels at Mark Order Pod and use the hashtag #JoinTheMarkOrder, because if you don't find us,
we will find you.
I'm Kevin Rowe.
I'm Al Day.
And we're a couple of down under pounders that co-host Rogue Day Dots, an action figure collecting podcast where we talk about, well, just about anything that tickles our fancy at any given moment.
We're grumpy old men, and sometimes people get on our nerves. And when you get on our nerves, guess what? You get off the lawn.
Get off my lawn, asshole! We also go on a little bit of a mission. We go back and we're grading every wrestling figure line that's out there. I'm talking LJNs. I'm talking Jacks. I'm talking Hasbros. Who doesn't like a little Hulkaplex? It's a Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production found on the Shining Wizards Network.
I'm Duke Bags.
Kevin Rowe.
And together we are the co-hosts of Your Duke and Road. If you want to hear about some terrible wrestling shows, we got you covered.
Well, we talk about good ones, too.
We're currently talking about the death of WCW.
I know what we're fucking talking about. Sometimes we get guest spots, like from the Taskmaster. I like to listen to the Your Duke and Rope podcast. They're funny guys. That I like when they talk about the Nards plows. I like Nards plows. That's a good move. And I like the Dungeon of Doom. You know, sometimes I call my butt the Dungeon of Doom. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Let me tell you a little bit about my favorite wrestling podcast. All right. It's a podcast for two men. Duke Bags, Kevin Rowe. They talk about professional wrestling. It's a man's sport. All right? And who better to talk about a man's sport than Oklahoma?
And once in a while, Vince Russo stops by.
Oh, you piece of shit! If you're not listening to the Your Duke and Rope podcast in the back with the boys, you piece of shit, I don't know what you're doing. It's, you gotta slide one in there. If you're a man, you're talking about something only a man can do. You're talking about sliding one in there. Bro, take the time to slide one in there. All right, bro, you piece of shit. Slide one in there. A Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production that you can find on the Shining Wizards Network.
We'd like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in every month.
I don't hear you.
Hey, it didn't unmute, but now it did. You almost got double commercials about the Shining Wizards Network, but Joe, on top of it, as usual, we've got a lot to dig into with Dynamite. We appreciate everyone in the chat, by the way. We got Scott George here, Lord Kev, who's always so awesome to us. We appreciate you being here. Mike Peterson, Taylor Cannon, who's always the most supportive of me. I don't know if I can put together who Big G is on here, but I know that he's Big G. So that's what we got going on in the chat. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, sticking around to talk some Dynamite, but we do get the new season of Dynamite starting tonight, as you alluded to earlier, and Excalibur alluded to as well. We got the colorful intro and logo, as well as our heel and face tunnels back. And we get Swerve Strickland coming out to talk to Samoa Joe, and what I thought was a really fun promo. He comes out the face tunnel. The face turn is complete here. He's got Nana alongside of him. And he just flat out says, is it really Swerve's house if I don't have the keys? And I like what we get from him here. He talks about how 2 years ago he stood on this stage with Tony Schiavone, who handed him his contract. And, he just keeps being the guy who can't quite get it done. That he gets close and then it doesn't happen for him. He says maybe it's karma for the bad stuff he's done. I love acknowledging that not that long ago he was breaking into someone's house to mess with their kid. So maybe it's a little bit of a karmic payback here, but he wonders if he's supposed to be champion instead of just this role player. The crowd is chanting, "You deserve it." They are fully in on a babyface Swerve Strickland, which I really, really liked. And Strickland promises not to let them down and says that Samoa Joe is coming for him. What did you think of this for starters?
This was how you should reintroduce Swerve as a proper face. He atoned for what he did. He accepted the fan support. He most importantly, he took accountability. And I think that as long as someone takes accountability for their actions, people can respect that a little bit, even though they might not agree with what happened. But it's easier to, have remorse and to build up that goodwill with the fan base. So I really liked the promo. I really liked it for that reason. And the fact that it kind of sets up the one-on-one match that we wanted to begin with.
Agreed. I think this is a nice development into the next layer of this program. I still think it should have been Swerve's time, but I understand why they didn't do it yet. I feel like they didn't want it to get overshadowed by Sting, and that maybe they want him to win as a proper babyface and all these things. I still thought he should leave Revolution champ. If you're not going to do that, what we got out of him tonight was great. So then we have Samoa Joe's music hitting. He's in his gear as well, notable. He was not in a fancy suit like I was asking for, but he says that Strickland is making promises to fans that he can't keep, and that Swerve's house is in Joe's world. I absolutely love this dude. They are setting their eyes on a real world champion with some really good stuff. And Strickland said that Samoa Joe still hasn't defeated him and challenged Joe for tonight. The Undisputed Kingdom comes out. You get Adam Cole and the whole crew. Story time with Adam Cole, baby. Cole putting over Roddy Strong's win. Mentioning Mike Bennett and Matt Taven being the greatest ROH tag team champions. They're never around ROH, so I can't accept that. He says 6 months from now, nobody's going to care who Swerve is, and he will be out of the main event scene. And Cole said that the man to win the AEW title is Wardlow, and he'll bring it home. Wardlow, of course, winning that title shot at the All-Star Scramble on Revolution. That leads to us getting a tag match of Samoa Joe and Swerve versus Mike Bennett and Matt Taven. But before we get into that match, what did you think of the rest of this promo, both the Adam Cole part and the Samoa Joe part? I just love Samoa Joe, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Samoa Joe can do no wrong. Anytime he has a mic in the hands, I'm gonna listen. And the fact that he added the whole, it might be Swerve's house, but it's his world. I thought that was a beautiful transition into the whole Undisputed Kingdom coming out with Wardlow, because Wardlow always talks about how it's Wardlow's world. So that kind of led into that. And then Adam Cole being the mouthpiece and kind of talking about Wardlow bringing the title back home and kind of alluding to home being him and not Wardlow. I think that's a nice little, continue to have that seed there for when that dissension occurs. But yeah, I think the one part that really popped me was the the Inspector Gadget Dr. Claw reference at the start. So
that is it right there. There's undeniably good stuff. But speaking of good stuff, Joe, Jesse Ozog's in the chat. Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Jesse.
So good stuff there from this opening segment. Anything else that you wanted to call out?
Not for the promos, no. So we can go right into that match, tag match.
Sure, and that's exactly what the program did. So that's what we're gonna do. Samoa Joe and Swerve defeating Mike Bennett and Matt Taven here. This was a quick match. The crowd just so behind Swerve in this, which was fun. Everybody else in this is heels, right? Joe is, you could argue, is a tweener because I think everybody loves this dude. But when he's against Swerve, he's now going to be a heel for sure. I just love how Joe is like, I'm an adult, I'm a champion, I'm here to kick everybody's ass. It's like one of my favorite things that you could be. But this was a really fun and effective tag match. There's not a ton really to say about it, but it was well done. Any spots that you want to call out?
No, not really spots. I felt bad for Mike Bennett. One, because he lost the mustache.
He did by Maria's urging, but he gets to have sex with Maria Kanellis, so it's a one. It's like
shave whatever she wants.
Yeah. She flat out said on Twitter, like, I'm not gonna have sex. She said on Twitter that she told him, if you don't shave that mustache, I'm not gonna have sex with you. And then she said something about dragging his balls across her face later. So like, there's no mustache in the world that's worth that.
So after losing that, then having to take this loss with Matt with Taven, no real spots. I hate how much it buries the ROH tag division of when your tag team champs who don't, obviously we mentioned earlier, don't defend on ROH television very often, if at all. I don't think, have they?
Maybe once, not that I can remember.
You have that, plus they get thrown into this match where they're the established team and they lose to the Can They Coexist tag team of Samoa Joe and Swerve. So I hate that. I hate that they were a clean finish like that. So wasn't a huge fan of the booking, but hey.
Yeah, this is a tough one because they are thrown together. I continually and will forever put over the Can They Coexist trope working in the best way I ever saw possible was Samoa Joe and ZSJ versus Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal. And part of what worked about that was all four men had a stake in it. The rules were if Christopher Daniels or Matt Sydal could pin either one of Samoa Joe or ZSJ, they would get a shot at their respective TV titles. So there was an impetus for Samoa Joe and ZSJ to win the match and to actually coexist together. And there was a reason for Sydal and Daniels to both want to win. Here, you're missing so many of those stakes, right? And you, in doing that, kind of lose a lot of the importance of the match because it just makes your tag champs look bad. It's two guys who don't even like each other clean beating champions of a promotion that's under your umbrella. So I'm with you on that the match was a lot of fun, but as someone who watches and reviews ROH, it's not great. It's not great. But we'll move on because post-match we get Wardlow walking to the stage and Samoa Joe choking out Swerve from behind because he was like, you were my friend a minute ago, but not too much longer, which is so nasty. And he stared down Wardlow and boots him and knocks Swerve unconscious here. We get Wardlow saying he will face Joe next week at Big Business for the AEW World title. Now, what I love about this is that we very quickly are clearing out this title shot. Wardlow's not going to win, right? Maybe MJF comes back here and costs him, or maybe there's some implications that he thought he would have backup from the rest of this Devil crew, but he's kind of an outsider of that crew, so they don't really help him out that much. Not sure what that is, but I'm glad this isn't a title shot that's just going to simmer and simmer and simmer, and we're going to do this in Boston, get it done. and see what is next for Wardlow. Any thoughts about that?
I'm glad as well, because I'm really fearful that they might try to run back a three-way match at Dynamite with Wardlow and Joe and Swerve. So I'm glad they're getting this out of the way. If Wardlow doesn't win the championship, that furthers that story with him and the Undisputed Kingdom, because he's not delivering on the promise of what Adam promises.
Sure.
So that could cause a little bit of dissension among them. So that kind of advances both stories. So
agreed. And I'm also a fan of hey, I want a title shot. I'm going after the title instead of let me just linger out there. Make it happen. Get to work. And if you are going to keep the belt on Joe, have him do some matches, right? Love that. So we move quickly backstage to Renee Paquette, who is with Hook, and she asks him about his upcoming match with Brian Cage, and Jericho interrupts because of course he does, and talks about his first match in ECW against Hook's dad, Taz, of course. Jericho saying he always felt like he had a connection with him, and after Hook dropped him at Revolution, he essentially gained his respect, that he felt okay, maybe Hook is the real deal now all of a sudden. And Hook gives him a fist bump and walks off. So it seems like we're setting up something for the FTW belt. I'm glad that the FTW belt is getting defended. I'm glad that they're keeping Hook hot. There's undeniably a good story there. Hard for me to get excited about something to do with just Chris Jericho right now. He has not looked good in the ring. The character as a face just doesn't do it for me. So I'm not excited about those things, but I do like them calling back to the history with Taz. We haven't really seen that outside of the RVD stuff, right? So not a bad story to set up here. I'm intrigued to see who wins, though, because if you have Jericho losing to Hook, that makes him kind of compromised, but I certainly don't see Jericho with the FTW title anytime soon. So maybe there's shenanigans of some sort. I don't know. But your thoughts on Chris Jericho and Hook and the segment that we got out here today?
I don't understand the Jericho vortex of him always having to be the old veteran who has to give the rub to the young talent, whether it's Sammy or Sammy Guevara, whether it's Daniel Garcia, whether it's Hook. It's just they don't need him to get buddy with him on TV on screen. Hook has been over by himself throughout this whole time, so I don't think adding Jericho to the mix does much for him. Unless obviously Hook beats him, sure. Yeah. But Ashley Andrade beat Jericho. What's Ashley Andrade done since then? So I just don't see much advantage for Hook being paired with Jericho at all. But
yeah, this one's a little tricky because I feel like early on I understood what they were doing, right? And even through the Ocho run and all of those things, he felt important. He felt like a champion. And so you had him in this championship adjacent picture to make him feel okay, well, we don't have the belt, but we want to keep someone feeling important. They're going to fight Chris Jericho because there's all this value in his name. He just has not looked good, and the stories have been bad of recent with Jericho. So I feel like that cachet has kind of worn off. And the other thing is we have so many fucking titles now, Joe. We've got the international title. We got the TBS title. We got trios titles. We got tag titles. We got ROH titles showing up all over the place. So it feels like if you don't want somebody to fall off in their importance and they're not in the world title picture, there's plenty of other places for them to go now. So I agree with you on that. I think the story is cool running back the Taz lore a little bit, but hopefully Hook just gets a good win out of this. Well, we quickly go backstage and look at the actions of Hangman Adam Page attacking the referees and cut to a shit-eating grin, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, who say they have two huge announcements. Matthew cuts his brother off and says they'll make those announcements later tonight in the ring, and they are smiling the whole time. I'm obsessed with this version of the Young Bucks. It cracks me up. It felt like they were trolling their own boss, which was also just a very fun layer of this. But no, we're going to do it in the ring. But we have an announcement. Actually, we have two big announcements. I am eating this hook, line, and sinker with Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. What are your thoughts on this quick little vignette? Because they had me in stitches. I was dying.
It was beautiful. I love the satire. This is so far the best hill run I've seen of theirs so far. It's Young Bucks turned up to 11, which is amazing and all that I could have hoped for and more. So yeah, the announcement of the announcement plus the weird dead eye stare into the camera smiling. I mean, on the nose, TK.
So good. I absolutely adored it. This was so much fun. And obviously we get a huge development later. But before we get to that, we have Cage versus Hook for the FTW belt. I'm so glad they did this. I'm so glad that they reminded us, hey, Team Taz was a thing. It would make sense if someone else in Team Taz was coming for this belt. Would be nice. But we have Brian Cage and Hook in what was a pretty fun match. This was kind of a weapons-y match that the crowd was into. We get a really nice spot where Cage dumps a bag of tacks out, but Hooks floats over a drill claw into the Red Rum. I loved that spot. I feel like I'm letting you down because I haven't called out that many spots today, but we get T-bone suplex onto the tacks and Hook delivering crossface shots and sinking into the Red Rum. Cage getting back up and falling onto the tacks as well, but Hook doesn't let go and Cage finally passes out. That's a really convincing win for Hook. I like that Cage passes out here. He's protected, but it also makes Hook look like a badass to beat somebody of Cage's stature, and making that dude pass out, I think, is a good call. This is a pretty fun match considering what it was. I didn't mind it at all. I'm wondering if Ricky Starks gets caught up in this picture. That would make me happy to see Ricky back on my screen, but I thought this was a pretty fun little match. These matches in general aren't for me, but I felt like it was done pretty well.
Yeah, I think it makes sense having FCW rules with a guy like Hook, who's obviously way undersized compared to Brian Cage, to help even the playing field a little bit more, where he can use, tables and chairs and fire extinguishers and everything else to help kind of offset the power of Cage. I thought the roll through the tacks of, getting slammed in the tacks while still holding on to the Red Rum. I mean, that was just it looked great on TV. Just watching him not giving a damn. Agreed.
And big night for bats tonight, as we're going to talk about in a minute with Darby Allin. But post-match, we have the rest of the Mogul Embassy coming back down to lay in some punishment. And then we have Jericho and Floyd returning to help out Hook. As you pointed out, you don't really need Jericho saving Hook at this time, but I get evening out the numbers a little bit. We got some more people in the chat that I just wanted to say hello to JPJ. He filled in for us on the Collider cast this weekend, so thank you so much for your help. He says AEW is humming, y'all. I love it. It does feel like this product is very much back on track, but any thoughts on the post-match?
No, other than I guess we're going to get Gates of Agony versus Hook and Jericho.
Seems like that.
So, sure.
Maybe that's in the tag tournament, perhaps. I don't know.
I hope not.
Yeah, I don't need an extended Hook and Jericho run, but we will see.
I feel like Hook has had enough random partners, whether it's Danhausen or whether it's OC for a while. I mean, I feel like stick with him on the single trajectory they have with him right now.
Agreed. And doing stuff with the FTW belts. I know it's not a recognized or an official belt, but he has it, and therefore he should be using it.
You have a qualm with this. They don't say it's recognized, but there's a graphic for it. The referee holds it up when they defend it. They seem like they recognize it on TV. So,
well, the almighty rankings don't acknowledge it.
Sure. The rankings, yeah.
They haven't been here in a month because Ryan's saying them out of existence.
I do wish maybe that the production was a little different for FCW rule matches. I mean, I'm obviously kind of a no DQ, but maybe if they did something different, with turning down lights in certain areas, or I don't know, just some kind of production so it makes it look a little different.
I agree, and you have so much. Yeah, you have a ton of versatility in the new set with that too. There's so many fun things that you could do. So I agree with you on that. Changing it up a little bit, making it refreshed for FTW could be a very fun call. But Kyle Sparks in the chat saying, "Hey, fun show tonight, but it sure was nice to have the ROH Tag Champions lose to wacky mismatched tag partners on the same show that the ROH TV Champion loses to." So I'm less upset about that. Yeah, we talked about the tag earlier. We'll talk about Kyle Fletcher later, but Kyle K. Sparks, I hear you. I'm very, very much with you on that. Oh, one LT photo in the chat as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. If you could leave a thumbs up on this video, that would be so rad because it helps people find us in the algorithm a lot easier.
One LT photos, his Sting face paint that his wife helped him with was
so much better than Ryan's.
Ryan did his blind.
Ryan did his blind because he could not see without his glasses on. That's extremely true. Ryan
was the Lionel Richie music video for Hello?
Yes.
Where he is the blind woman sculpting Lionel Richie's head. That was Ryan putting on the Sting face paint.
Oh my God. What a reference. What a reference. Man, Lionel Richie was the first record that I recall being played in my house, but it was Dancing on the Ceiling because, oh, what a feeling.
Of course, yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff here. We got a quick video package of Tony Khan saying that after Revolution, the tag team titles are vacated and announces the tournament. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but we move backstage with Renee Paquette and Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, and Trent Beretta. And she asks Orange Cassidy what's next for him following the international title. He says he's going to try and fill up his backpack with more gold, which I love. I had this question, and if I had the chance to ask it in a scrum, I would have. I was like, when Orange Cassidy loses the belt, does he lose the Jansport too? I wanted to know that. Like, does he lose the carrying case along with the title? But it sounds like he gets to keep the backpack, so I'm very glad that that's clarified. Chuck Taylor said it's time best friends win the big one, but he's not cleared yet. So it should be Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta to enter the tournament and win the damn thing. Get the tournament starting this Friday on Rampage. Feels like we've been getting some heel flavors from Trent Beretta. Do you think we get them in this tournament and that's where they come out?
I think so. I think you end up having them not, something happens where they obviously don't advance in the tournament. And I think Trent gets a little bit upset with Orange and decides that he's wasted enough time being Orange's backup and helping focus everything on Orange's goals. So I think it makes sense. I like Trent as a singles guy.
Me too.
And when he's a heel or has that kind of aggressive behavior in his wrestling style, it's really fun to watch. So,
agreed. Agree with you there. He was always great, but when he returned back from injury, from when he had that long absence, something else clicked into another level. So he's been on a tear, I feel like, since then. It's nice to see him getting on some sort of track, hopefully, here. So
yeah, when he came back and he was kind of a dick to Wheeler Yuta.
That was good shit.
Trent, I like that character of him.
Me too. I'm kind of excited that we might be heading back in that direction. But I'll tell you what I'm not excited about, and I just don't care about Kill Switch. We had a Kill Switch getting the win over Matt Menard here. This is a quick match. It's building a bigger story of Adam Copeland returning here. My question is, where were you at the pay-per-view, Adam Copeland? But the trilogy gets made official in Toronto in 2 weeks with an I Quit match for that TNT title. Very intrigued what happens with that because I could see Copeland winning. I could also see Copeland losing and eventually switching sides to join the bad guys. I think an Adam Copeland heel run could be fun now that the shiny newness of him being here has worn off a little bit. But Kill Switch hit a running extinction for the win. Garcia made a save post-match attack here, beating down Nick Wayne before we get a big boot from Kill Switch to put a stop to it. And of course, Mother Wayne ringside. Cage saying that he loved his son on commentary. This is getting a little long in the tooth for me, but I feel like in 2 weeks, getting an I Quit match between Adam Copeland and Christian Cage is going to be a good resolution. This story does feel like it's taking a long time, but I'm not mad about it wrapping up within the next couple weeks. Any thoughts on 1, this match, and 2, what are you expecting from the I Quit match?
This match itself was between Killswitch and Daddy Magic. Like, there wasn't much, like you said, to the match. I was just kind of happy to see Daddy Magic on Dynamite in a singles match. That
Yes.
felt fresh, something different, you know. And as far as the I Quit match, I am more interested if Adam Copeland loses. I think that's a more interesting story for his character going forward. Because I do hope that somehow him and Christian get on the same page again. And I think them being heels together would be a lot of fun. Because I don't think Christian could be a face that it would take a while for him to become a face.
No, I don't think you want to mess with perfection either. And it being an I Quit match, I hate I Quit matches. It's like one of my least favorite stipulations with lumberjack matches. But I wonder if there's something interesting of like, say you'll quit and I'll let you on our side or something. Like if they play with the I Quit piece of it under coercion of some sort of if you quit, you have to join me or something like that.
Was Copeland's last I Quit match, was that the one he lost when they had Beth Phoenix under duress? Or
oh yeah, I think you're right.
So maybe his record's not so great in I Quit matches.
Maybe not, or maybe Beth Phoenix is around. I don't know. But
her.
That's a really good call. There's some fun possibilities with that. Well, my heartstrings were tugged at in this next segment because Renee Paquette welcomes Kyle O'Reilly backstage and asks him about what it would like to be away for almost 2 years. Kyle O'Reilly says he hates to admit this, but he thought at a point that he may never return again. But the ovation on Sunday felt amazing. He says nothing but love for the Undisputed Kingdom, but having a second chance, he wants to go his own way. So I like this because I don't know if Roddy's going to want him to go his own way. He might want him involved in this, whether he chooses to or not. I'm just so happy this guy is back. This was a quick backstage, but your thoughts on it?
I have Fleetwood Mac in my head now. Thank you.
You can go your own way. Ryan would be so glad that some singing got me onto the show.
Stevie Nicks was in town there tonight, so.
Oh my gosh! Well, thank you for staying committed to the show and not going to see Stevie.
I'm really intrigued to see what they do with Kyle, since he's trying to pave his own path, and whether or not he'll be able to stick to doing that, or if he'll eventually give in and join his friends. It's the very babyface thing to do coming back from injury, I can prove it to myself now and do my own thing. But like you said, it really is easy just to fall back with your buddies.
It is. And
especially if you check out.
Yes. And I do also find it interesting because Roddy has the international title. I don't think you sign Bobby Fish back. I don't think you need Red Dragon here, but I do think it might be interesting if what the Whisper exchange was had more to do with like him saying to Roddy, like, hey, you're a champion. You don't need these guys anymore. We should try and win those tag titles from Bennett and Taven. That would be nice, but they never do anything with ROH, so who cares?
Fair point.
Well, show-stealing segment of the night followed this. We get Tony Schiavone and the Bucks here after what was a phenomenal entrance. Just they held the pose for so long. There were like more with the pyro, which I love. We had some fun stuff here. Tony Schiavone, who is inching closer and closer to getting fined, saying that what was it like to get your asses whooped at Revolution? And then Matthew demands Schiavone leave, and they move past Revolution and Sting's cheating, which I loved. References all of his sons being involved and how they won unfairly. But Nicholas says, regardless of the match result, they got Sting to retire forever, and now they want to enter the tournament for these AEW tag titles. Matthew also says that they have 2 big announcements and they involve their good friends. No favoritism. Hangman Page messed with officials. He crossed the line. He's got to be suspended indefinitely from the Elite without pay. And also Kenny Omega, absent, as we talked about this earlier in the show, fell off the face of the earth for some reason, for no real reason. I loved this. And he is fired from the Elite. We get an Eddie Kingston interruption. The Bucks say that, what do we get? The second announcement said that Nicholas told them if he doesn't watch his language last week, he'd be fine. But Eddie Kingston is there. He throws a lot of cash at them. He says he's there in his Timbs and his sweats, which I loved, and throws a lot of cash and says, might as well do it now, bitch, which I loved. Matthew tries to get everyone to calm down because he's the good guy here. And as Nicholas puts his hands on Eddie Kingston first, there's a low blow and an EVP trigger, and then we get the coin drop sounding, and here comes Okada. Beautiful suit. We get a Rainmaker with Eddie Kingston. This is good shit, man. I love Okada entering here. The newest member of the Elite is Okada, who signals to a down Eddie Kingston that he's coming for the Continental Crown. I don't hate that at all. I don't hate it if Okada wins the Continental Crown, especially if we're going to head into a program with Okada and Kenny Omega. That would be something that feels very important. Those are both guys who could work New Japan and ROH and here. So I feel like there's a lot of fun possibilities. This was a hell of a segment. I thought it was orchestrated perfectly. I absolutely adored it. What about you?
The Bucks can do no wrong right now. They're just firing on all cylinders.
I love this version of them. So many people are getting worked by it, but I'm like, this is what they do, though.
Enjoy the ride. It's just fun. And
it is fun.
Eddie kind of being the foil to their shenanigans, I think is a good mix. He is the gasoline that just poured onto this fire. Okada can
Eddie.
You have the action figure, by the way?
I don't.
Wow, and you're an Eddie Mark? Come on.
I know. There are nefarious means in which I might be getting one, but I don't have it yet.
But Okada facing Eddie for this Continental, I don't know what to call it. What is it called? The
Continental Crown.
Yeah. I think that is great because, if he wins this and gets to hold a New Japan belt after talking about how New Japan is like a sinking ship.
Yeah.
I think that's great for, things that he could do with people in New Japan defending this, the crown. So I'm interested to see what they have in store when they show up on Collision Saturday. This new rendition of the Elite.
I'm very intrigued by where this is going, and I think it's a whole lot of fun. Like Peterson said, I'm not even a real Eddie Mark. I attempted to buy such an action figure. I did not have luck. So, just so you know, the attempt was there, but I think I might still be getting one. One LT photo said, my wife was so angry, she had no idea who Okada was, and it took out her fave Eddie. So his wife wore a Queen of the Bum shirt, homemade. Mwah. Saw that in a couple of pictures from this weekend. Excellent stuff. But this is all excellent stuff. Okada is here. He's in a super interesting angle to start. I think it's very possible he does beat Eddie Kingston. Man, oh man. I am pumped for that. And I also am very pumped about the women's division. Obviously, we have Mercedes coming next week. But here tonight, we get Riho defeating Chris Statlander with, of course, Stokely Hathaway at ringside. Some good stuff here. Like, Rio is not usually for me, but a lot of what she did today was take a ton of offense from Statlander, and Statlander is great. So I had no problems with this, really. The big piece of the story here being that Stokely offered the chain to Chris Statlander, who rejected it, and she loses the match. And the lesson here, use the chain. If somebody gives you a chain, you should use it, right? So it feels like we're setting up for a Chris Statlander heel turn, which is not something I ever would have assumed because she was such an over baby face. I'm thinking about her little lizard boots and all of this. My God. But could create some very interesting and fun possibilities for Willow versus Chris down the line. Interesting possibilities for Willow in general, who seems like she's eyeing Julia Hart. Good stuff. Match was perfectly fine, but I'm more intrigued by the story of where it's going. And again, just really refreshing to have stories in this women's division. What were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'm shocked to hear you say you would take the chain. I thought you were more of a baby face than that. Come on.
Oh, no. I lie, I cheat, I steal all day. Let's go.
Well, the match itself was solid with Riho. I mean, it's been a while since she's been on TV. So I think they use her properly now, bring her in every now and then. But she ate a lot of Statlander's offense, but she did a lot of the moves she did tonight were ones that I felt were a little bit more believable with some of the quick strikes and some of the aerial moves. Trying to play up to her quickness. The only thing that I really couldn't believe was when she did a dragon suplex on Statlander. One, because she's she's shorter than Chris, and two, you're going to tell me she's going to be able to snap Statlander over her head that easily. But besides that, the outcome was perfect for the story. It's interesting to see Statlander have this internal strife of, do I blame myself or do I blame Stokely as far as what direction she goes? Because when she was tagging with Willow, she didn't take the chain and they won. But when she's in a singles match and she doesn't take the chain, then she loses. So I think it'll be really interesting to see Stat be a heel. But again, part of me just wants to see Willow be the shocker and go heel. But
I understand that, especially because there was so much start and stop with her. You could very easily a story about frustration. The only thing I will say is there's some very interesting possibilities here because you've got Willow, you got Julia on one side, right? And she's not only a heel, but a spooky heel. You have pure babyface Willow. If Willow were to win and you have an incoming Mercedes Moné, the last title that Willow held, she won in a match versus Mercedes where she got injured. And I had just assumed, obviously, Mercedes is going for the top belt, right? But there's such a pre-existing story with Willow. This kind of writes itself for this mid-card title. And you've got this Tony Storm train that's heading in a completely different direction. Maybe the move is you do Willow and Mercedes for this title, or maybe Mercedes comes in and costs her or something. But I think the interplay there could be between Willow and Mercedes, and I think that could be a hell of a lot of fun because that match was great before she got injured. I mean, great. So, and she should want vengeance on her. Willow's the last thing that stood between her and the title.
So you have Willow taking the belt off of Julia eventually here.
If they do, they could do that, or maybe Mercedes costs Willow or something. I think it would be a very wise idea to have Willow have a belt sooner than later because it felt like she had so much momentum and then cooled off so much. You could really heat it right back up with her. But you could also have Mercedes cost her the belt the way that Willow cost Mercedes the belt. There's a lot of fun storytelling you could do. The only reason I don't go in that direction is I think it's going to be very tricky to make Mercedes a heel off the bat. People are going to be so fucking excited she's here.
True. Yeah.
So some good stuff here. And just, again, can't emphasize enough how refreshing it is to have some real storytelling. Let's also not forget that the train doesn't necessarily end at Mercedes. We still have Megan Bain coming in. There's still a possibility that we get Camille in. So tons of continued growth. And speaking of our women's division, Asian Joe, do you know what season it is?
I don't.
Award season, darling.
Oh, of course it is.
This Friday on Rampage, she's going to be presenting the first Tony Awards, Tony with an I, so that they don't get sued, she says. And then Mariah May gets her very first AEW shirt, which is, of course, her dressed up as Tony Storm, which was such a blast of a psych out at the pay-per-view. And Toni Storm lets Mariah May know that she will get a percentage of all the sales, of course, before hitting the chin up, tits out line. And Mariah May says, watch for the shoe. So excellent continued storytelling here. I do have to say, I am obsessed with this Toni Storm character. It's brilliant. It's so much fun. I was a little let down by the Deonna match. I was a little let down by it. I don't think it was bad. A lot of people said it was bad, but I just don't think the build was so excellent. I was expecting a lot from it. It didn't feel like a pay-per-view match to me. It just kind of felt like a really strong Dynamite match. And I'm a techer gal, so there were a lot of technical things I loved about this, but it didn't have that pay-per-view feel, and the build was so good. And then I started thinking about it, and some of the Toni Storm matches in this reign just haven't been great. As excellent as the character is, it might be very hard to do both. And part of it might be the way these matches are agented, because we got a stupid distraction finish again. The match with Shida had the weird tray spot in it. Like, they're not workers working matches, but with the women's division in such a positive direction, it is kind of a bummer. Like, I was hoping that this was going to be like that barn burner match, and we didn't quite get it. But I'm interested to see what happens here. And I'm now in the camp of, does Mariah May just beat her? Is Mariah May your next women's world champion? That's not what I had kind of bookmarked in my head, but kind of sold myself on this Mercedes in the TBS title picture idea. Any thoughts on the match that we saw at Revolution? Did you also feel like it was a little off kilter? And what do you think comes of this Mariah May Toni Storm story?
I'm with you. I think you do kind of handcuff yourself a little bit with booking for the character, not necessarily, and that kind of gives you some limitations maybe because of Thomas Tony's, character and all that stuff, and how she acts and what she does, and having, two people on the outside for interference things. So that did kind of muddle the booking a little bit, probably. It wasn't as good as I thought it could have been, but also I think it's the first of 2 to 5 more matches between them down the line, and I think they'll be better when she's not in the Timeless Toni Storm persona. So I'm looking forward to those more than this one. This was kind of just to help break Deonna into the AEW crowd, I think, a little bit more, to get her out there and get her into a hot feud right away. I don't hate the idea of Mariah May winning the title off of Toni eventually here. That's not someone I thought who would win it off of her, but it does, play up that story of the understudy taking over the leading role.
Agreed.
Very single white female right now, with her, doing the cosplay of Toni Storm, and wanting to be like her and be her. So her becoming the champion would be accomplishing that goal.
We have seen a limited amount of her in the ring, but what we've seen of her, I'm also very impressed. Not only is Nigel McGuinness falling out of chairs when she gets kisses blown, but it is very fun to see. Like, no, she packs a punch. She hits hard. She works that Joshi style for a while. So some really good stuff there. So we move along to a backstage. This is the only thing too, like, I don't need them to do and this is the girls part of the show. Like, it would be nice if we spread that out through the episode, but I'm just happy that we're getting real programming. But Renee's backstage with Willow and Stokely, who said Statlander wanted to do things her way tonight. She's still one of the best that AEW has and one of Stokely Hathaway's favorites. She wishes she could just accept help from the people that love her most, which I thought was a very fun way of framing what they did. And then Renee informs Willow that she will be taking on Riho at Big Business, which I think is a good sign that Willow will probably win, and we'll get this continued resentment between Willow and Chris. I think that's a fun direction to head for this. And Willow says she's got her sights set on that TBS title. She just has to get through Riho first. So fuck your standings, I guess, but fuck your rankings, I say. But some good stuff here. Any thoughts on this backstage?
No, I'm just curious to see what happens when Willow just presented with the chain at Big Business, because they're going to be that spot when she'll have to make that decision.
Agreed. We get a Darby Allin and Switchblade face-off. They have a match set for big business, and Tony welcomes Darby down to the ring. Darby officially vacates the title and says, "How would I do this without Sting?" He says that he grew up, or not that he grew up, as recent as 5 years ago, 40 minutes from that arena, he was homeless. And then on Sunday, he's main eventing with Sting in his retirement match, which I thought was a nice little tie-in from Darby. I like Darby in these more natural human sounding things. I think his connection with the crowd comes very vivid. He says he's beat up and tired, and he's going to have his match with Switchblade, and then he's going to go climb Mount Everest. God bless this adrenaline junkie for I'm going to crash through glass from 1,000,000 feet in the air, and then I'm going to fight Jay White, and then I'm going to go climb Everest. He thanks the crowd for giving him the dream, vacating the titles here, and then the Bullet Club Gold music hits, and out comes Switchblade. And he says he didn't know if he had a chance to talk to him, so he congratulated him face to face after a great night at Revolution. Darby sacrificed himself to make sure Sting retired a champion. And White says, with all the stupid of Darby Allin crashing off a ladder through the glass, leaving Sting by himself to fight the Young Bucks. I love that he called this out in this way. I thought it was a very, very well done thing to reframe. You actually didn't help Sting. You left him alone to fend for himself. I thought was a very clever way to go about things. And he says that they don't need to have the match next week. They could have it right now, and no one would think less of Darby Allin for bailing after everything he's been through spiritually, physically, and then touches him on the chest and goes emotionally. And he calls him Darby Scissorhands and talks about hanging out with the Bang Bang gang here. I got to get Jay White away from this Bang Bang bullshit as soon as possible. I'm very much looking forward to the match between him and Darby. I think it'll be awesome. It's not something I'd really considered wanting to see before, and I think it'll be super fun. But I got to get through this Bang Bang shit. Like, this is no more with the Acclaims. I miss Juice so much. The Guns are fine as stooges, but like, can we get Jay White feeling super important, please, on this program? Face Off was good enough. Your thoughts on this?
Well, just what you said there. I like the fact that in Darby's response, he pretty much was saying what we all have been thinking, as far as what has Jay White done since
Yes, thank you for calling that out because I forgot about that. Yeah,
it says it's true. Like after he had a program with Max, he had some other a couple things right away, but I felt like it's been forever since he's meant anything. He's been kind of lost in the shuffle with multiple tag teams and 6-man tags, and I just need him to be the Switchblade we heard tonight. Just be that singles guy. Where I like the fact that he's with this. He's with the Bang Bang Scissor Gang, and they're kind of tweener faces, but he's still kind of tongue in cheek, and he says all these face type things, but it's kind of with a wink and a nod because he's being sarcastic and really kind of like what he was tonight. So yeah, I want this undercutting, evil Switchblade. I want that guy that we've watched in New Japan and we've seen everywhere else. Agreed wholeheartedly with you. So let's get a move on, I say. Let's get a move on. And we will move on to Julia Hart and Sky Blue backstage saying the worst feeling in the world isn't loneliness, it's being forgotten. And Willow Nightingale seemed to forget who the hell Julia Hart is, the queen of the Black Throne. Hart says that on Rampage, she's issuing an open house to remind anybody who the TBS champion is. So glad Julia is healthy and back to it. And this gets followed up by a House of Black promo, shown addressing Mark Briscoe, where they say they'll fight fire with fire. And Buddy Matthews says they will set Mark Briscoe ablaze. And Brody King said his wars with the Briscoe brothers have left scars on their body that they'll never forget. And Saturday on Collision, history will repeat itself. Some good stuff here, and it ends with Julia singing It Burns, 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 Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash in kind of a haunting voice. So some fun stuff there. And then, Joe, I got one more promo for you, and then I'm going to throw it to you. But Mark Briscoe immediately responds to this, saying he doesn't need any partners. He'll face all three of the House of Black in an Atlanta street fight
But Jay Lethal walks in and says he's got Briscoe's back, and Briscoe says not to bring Jeff Jarrett. But Lethal is a better person for a street fight than Jeff Jarrett. And Briscoe doesn't have to trust him. He just has to fight by his side. And Excalibur questions whether Jeff Jarrett even knows that Jay Lethal offered this. So those 3 segments, you get the quick Julia Hart, I've got an open challenge to remind you thing. You get creepy ass House of Black saying they're going to set people on fire. And then you get Mark Briscoe responding. Your thoughts on that chunk of this episode?
The Julia promo, I really thought that it was going to lead to a match with Willow on Rampage initially. Because she, talked about Willow, and then she talked about her open challenge. And then I saw that she's going to face Robin Renegade, I think, on Rampage.
Gotcha. So, I didn't see that, so I'm glad you did.
Promoted it towards the end. So I'm like, okay, I don't know when she's going to wrestle Willow, but I guess maybe it'll be at Dynasty or something. Who knows?
Makes sense.
So, and then the House of Black, I mean, I see that as a typical House of Black menacing, threatening promo. If they're going to light anyone on fire, then, I think we all know who we want that to be.
I agree.
Not going to say any names, but, and that, maybe that gets Jay Lethal away from that faction, and we can finally do away with that group.
TNA.
Yeah, I don't know what they call themselves, but they're just kind of a job squad.
I call them Team TNA because that's what it feels like over there. But we close out the episode with the strongest match of the night, and I have a feeling we're going to be saying that a lot as long as Will Ospreay is all elite and healthy, because he put on a great match with your ROH TV champion Kyle Fletcher. Holy hell, this was a lot of fun. You had Don Callis on commentary here. This gave you so much wonderful stuff. You have Fletcher dodging an Oscutter to lay in a half and half before getting leveled with an Enziguri and a brainbuster. Ospreay goes for a hidden blade, but you have Fletcher dodging in a corner and Snake Eyes on the middle buckle. This was awesome. You can tell these two are familiar with each other. You can tell Kyle Fletcher is under the learning tree. You get Kyle Fletcher in this, cutting off a Leap of Faith attempt and laying in this ridiculous avalanche dragon suplex, but Ospreay landing on his feet like a cat. I don't understand how these guys are this agile and this fast. Two of the best at match pacing just in general, but you have Will Ospreay winning with that hidden blade for the win. This felt like the best wrestler in the world right now versus probably the best wrestler in the world in the future. You had Ospreay and Callis checking on Fletcher after the match, and Bryan Danielson's music hits, and he comes down to the ring, and Danielson and Ospreay stare each other down, and Buddy, with both Okada and Danielson and Ospreay, all 3 of those guys, some put it in my veins stuff. Like, just, if we're immediately teasing Danielson Ospreay out the gate, I am a very, very happy camper. This was a hell of a way to end the show. I felt like this episode was kind of down. Like, there was a lot of stuff there that was fine. The Okada stuff was great. And then to end this episode on this match with a Danielson and Ospreay stare down, what better thing to go home on? Your thoughts on the match and our post-match here?
It was, watching the match, it reminded me of, in boxing when guys shadow box to warm up and to practice. It felt like Ospreay was, wrestling a version of himself. Because,
yes,
like you said, they know each other so well. They have very similar styles. It's just, you couldn't ask for a better, dance partner in the ring. It was, the strikes were great. Fletcher taking advantage of Ospreay when Ospreay offered up the chest for a chop, and he decided to thrust kick him instead.
Yes, very
I
good
thought
shit.
The Os cutter on the apron. I just like, the guy went through hell in his match against Tatechka a couple days ago, and now he's having this banger of a match with Fletcher. I'm like, the guy got dropped on his head into a turnbuckle, and I thought the Osprey's heel kicks always amazes me of how flexible that guy is, where he just, bends his foot around like a scorpion tail and just
Yeah, what the hell?
kicks your ear. And then Fletcher selling the cutter in the middle of the ring. I thought that was beautiful. And then the way they ended the match with the hidden blade, but not really hidden, like the face on, like the eight. I thought it was almost like a beautiful, respectful way of doing it to your friend. It's like, I'm not gonna hit you in the back of the head like everyone else. You're gonna see it coming. I accept it. I thought that was really nice to end the match that way.
It did feel very much like the real life story of Kyle Fletcher being under the learning tree of Osprey, both in United Empire and real life, really showed through in this match, especially considering this wasn't the longest match in the world, thank God, because Will Ospreay's back is a giant bruise and stuff. Like that guy, I'm sure, is feeling it internally. But I loved that, and Kyle Fletcher has been very outspoken about how much Will Ospreay has been a mentor to him. And to your point, it was almost like, and now it's time to go home with that hidden blade. It wasn't like, ha ha ha, sneaky out of nowhere. It was just like, I got you. Like the sensei won this time around. Very casually, Tim McFowle just said what was on my mind. Very casually, we just set up best in the world right now versus best American in-ring performer to ever do it, probably. Just with like this hint of Danielson coming down. There's so much that goes into restoring the feeling, right? We got our tunnels back. We got our colorful logo back. We got the C2. We've got this refreshed sports-based feel to things. Best wrestler to ever do it versus best wrestler right now feels like the most restored feeling thing ever. And it just being set up by Danielson coming down and kind of being like, welcome. Glad you're here. Man, that rules. Man, that rules. Your thoughts on Danielson Osprey getting set up out of this?
I don't think I was expecting this to happen this quickly.
Nor was I.
I'm not mad at it by any means. Give it to me, 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I will take this match and watch it over and over again. It's if Danielson wants to wrestle Osprey the remainder of matches up until All In, cool. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and like you said, with Okada now here, Kenny on his way back, hopefully pretty soon. All you're missing really is ZSJ.
I know, and they're not even doing anything with him. Hopefully, he wins the New Japan Cup in Japan, but
come on.
Weird decision over there. Well, you do have ZSJ and Danielson at 1-1, right? So I'm assuming Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door is not neutral territory, though, which Danielson was very specific about. Felt like maybe they were hinting at Arena Mexico, but they did say they wanted to do a 2 out of 3 falls match. So that score will get settled, and I think that'll be really special and fun when it happens. Osprey Danielson, just ridiculous. Just a ridiculous possible dream match. So I'm wondering if that turns into a program for Dynasty. Like if they have this, maybe they run it back one other time, and then your Dynasty card might include Swerve versus Samoa Joe for the title. Let's say I'm right about Julia and Willow. That gets set up. And Danielson Osprey, and we're already getting hints of that. We have 6 more weeks. Like, man, this promotion is on fire again, and it's good to see.
I know. I wasn't planning on going to that show, but if that happens, I might have to fly down to St. Louis.
Yeah, that's gonna be a hell of a barn burner of a pay-per-view. Barns will be burned, and that breaks my heart as a vegan, but I'm also here for it at the same time. So some good shit, and what a way to close out the night. Really, really fun main event that we got out of this. An up and down episode overnight, but feels like this product is very much on track, which is really refreshing. Also, we just had a monster pay-per-view 4 days ago, so I'm okay with the down week because we're building right back up to Boston. So we got big business around the corner. Going to be a huge week next week. We got Okada here today. Some incredible stuff. But before we get out of here, we are going to ask you one more time to leave a thumbs up on this video if you haven't. It's super helpful in people finding us on YouTube. And we are going to plug our own t-shirts again because more of you are watching than the first time when we did this. But Look at our beautiful t-shirts. Come on. Look at that. You're going to go over to Pro Wrestling Tees. You're like, Merch Madness is going on. I need to pick up some of my favorite wrestlers. Oh, my favorite wrestling podcast in the whole wide world, the Mark Order podcast, has t-shirts. Look at all 4 of these beautiful designs. 2 front and back ones. What a blessed world we live in that I can support the Mark Order podcast with my own muns. Good stuff. Good stuff. Beautiful t-shirts. I should probably get one at some point, but until then, pick one up. Would you be so kind? Would appreciate it. Would appreciate it. Before we get out of here, we've got the Collider Cast coming up on Saturday. Please join us for that. It's a Collision watch along, which I haven't seen a lot of. We get a lot of post shows for things, but it's very fun to have a Saturday vibe where we all hang out. Joe anchored that one last week. We had JPJ and Pluggo joining us for that, and that ruled. And we love to be able to kind of rotate guests in and out of that for sure. So stay tuned for that on Saturday. We got a big episode of Rampage coming up as well. It looks like we got a title defense from Julia Hart, but you can follow the Mark Order podcast on social media as well. Normally it's Ryan running it, but he is a coward and didn't show up today. But he does a great job over there on our Twitter/X account. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok as well. You can find me at Miss Kate Fabe on social media and all over Fightful. Mondays on Fightful Select, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday doing NXT, ROH, and SmackDown post shows, as well as pay-per-view post shows behind the paywall on Fightful Select as well. Say that 10 times fast with Alex Blowski. But wrestling is all well and good. There's something that's more fun, a little different, and that's wacky serials. And if you're like, I would like to know more about wacky serials, and I would like somebody's thoughts and opinions on such wacky serials, I've got the blog for you. Well, Joe's got the blog for you, so I'm going to let him plug his shit and let him tell you about it.
Sure. So you can find me on social media at _Asian Joe. And in my bios, there is a link to my serial review blog where I just kind of taste test and rank some wacky novelty cereals that are horribly unhealthy for you.
Well, we look forward to the reviews and the profiles of these cereals. We do not look forward to the health implications that they might have, but we trust you to manage and moderate your own health over there. Please leave a thumbs up on your way out if you didn't already, and join us for the Collider Cast on Saturday. We so appreciate your support. It means a lot. I know we've had a bit of a rotating cast ourselves without Aunt Money being out, Ryan being out. I'm trying to stick around here as much as I can with my crazy schedule, but Joe is recovered. I'm here. We're hanging out. We're having fun tonight. Thank you so much for joining here. But we are out of here. Goodbye and a good night.
Thank you.